I wanted to be like him. He was lovable, he was dangerous, everything a young kid would admire. It was Elvis Presley. That was it for me. Changed my whole life.
Elvis Presley was a man of two worlds, the electrifying performer who brought joy to millions with his music and his irresistible charm, and the deeply complex figure who carried the weight of fame and personal struggles. He captivated audiences with his heartfelt songs and wild energy, while behind the scenes battled his own demons.
I've met a lot of those stars that movies and records and adulation and all those things kind of make you into a star. Elvis was born a star.
What all had gone wrong so fast. What I saw in '76, it scared me to death.
And he died by himself.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me fucking mad.
Yeah.
That makes me mad. He died by himself.
Ecstasy and heartache, triumph and tragedy.
I thought he was immortal. I mean, every time something happened like an angel, you know, his guardian angel pulled him out of it.
A king of both the stage and his own vulnerabilities.
I could not believe how he deteriorated.
There were times I looked at him and he looked very lonely, and he'd be in the middle of a bunch of people. I apologize, I get emotional.
Don't apologize. We all get emotional.
Just rough.
Elvis Presley's later years were marked by solitude, paranoia, and a growing reliance on drugs, a sharp contrast to the boundless energy and joy he once brought to the world. The king of rock and roll, who once dazzled millions with his electrifying performances, found himself trapped in the pressures of fame, living in isolation at Graceland, haunted by the very thing that had made him a legend. His health deteriorated, his performances grew erratic, and his personal life, once filled with love and promise, became a shadow of its former self. The man who had once been the embodiment of youthful freedom and rebellion now seemed like a prisoner of his own success. But to understand Elvis's later struggles, we must return to the beginning, to the young boy from Tupelo, Mississippi, who had nothing but a dream, a voice, and an unshakable desire to escape the poverty that defined his early life. From his first break at Sun Records, Elvis shot to fame like a comet, changing the world with every note. He became a symbol of hope, of dreams come true, of freedom and possibility. His music reflected the joy, the pain, the promise, and the heartbreak of growing up in America. From the beginning, Elvis was deeply cherished by his personal bodyguards.
My first impression when I met Elvis in 1958 was it was hard to believe that this was such a superstar.
They often described him with a mix of reverence, admiration, and complexity.
He was such a natural, good person, attentive, caring, a warm guy.
Their accounts provide a unique perspective on his personality, lifestyle, and the pressures of fame.
When you talk to him, he just talked to you like my cousin Red talked to me or some of the other guys, and he just was, I don't know, there was something about him that just drew you in. Elvis, Red, and myself grew up in housing projects, government housing projects where you could only make so much amount of money and you lived there. And there was 3 of them in Memphis. There was Lamar Terrace, where I was raised up, Lauderdale Courts, where Elvis was there, and then a place called Hurt Village, which Red and us always joked about that name because you were hurting. The Lamar Terrace gang was known as being the toughest gang around. We had some really bad dudes, and they started us out young.
My name is Jerry Schilling. I met Elvis in 1954 at the age of 12 years old. Growing up in North Memphis, I went to the local park one day. It's called Dave Wells Community Center, Guthrie Park. There was a little school called Guthrie. And sometimes people would play basketball, football, or whatever. It was the only kind of park to go to. I went there this Sunday, and there were 5 older boys, like high school. I was in grade school, trying to get up a 6th player to play football. And one of the older guys was a friend of my older brother's, Red West. And he said, "Jerry, do you want to play with us?" We went in the huddle, and I saw this guy. It was Elvis Presley. That was it for me. Changed my whole life. I wanted to be like him. He was lovable, he was dangerous, everything a young kid would admire. I remember going home, saying a little prayer that night, saying, gosh, a real prayer, saying, I really wish he would be my friend.
My name is Marty Eliker, and I first went to work for Elvis when I was 24. Elvis was a bit of a loner back then. He had maybe 3 or 4 friends that lived in the same housing project he did, and primarily was shy, did not really come out of his shell until a couple of talent shows, and the girls started screaming him. I mean, he always liked girls. I mean, I think he had more.
Elvis Presley didn't just make music, he changed the very sound of it. He would go on to redefine not just rock and roll, but also pop culture itself.
I was there seeing concerts in 55 and 56 and 57. The most exciting, raw, animalistic things I've ever seen. And of course, that will always be my lifelong image of Elvis Presley.
Music was the mainstream of his life.
Nobody commanded the stage any better than Elvis Presley.
The public loved him because he represented freedom. His magnetic stage presence, swagger, and provocative performances were unlike anything the world had seen. Teenagers, who were growing up in an era where they were beginning to find their own voice, saw in Elvis the ultimate expression of youthful rebellion. His moves were bold, his voice was raw, and his look was a new kind of cool, something fresh and exciting that felt like it was theirs.
Because the place was so big, we had to drive around where he could wave to everybody before going on the stage. When Elvis opened up the curtain and saw that crowd, he got weak in the knees, almost got sick. I swear to God, I had this premonition of another life. You know, and Elvis was standing up at the back of this Jeep. It was kind of like a chariot. And we were like in this Roman Colosseum, and people were reaching over this like 7-foot wall trying to touch Elvis. And it was pretty awesome. I think, oh my God, I forgot who this guy is, you know. And so there was always something kind of put you back in reality. He's the only star I have ever met. I've met a lot of those stars that movies and records and adulation and all those things kind of make you into a star. Elvis was born a star.
He just had a charisma about him. He had a way of pulling you in. People call it Southern charm. He had it in spades. He had it in spades. There really wasn't much that Elvis couldn't get if he really went after it, whether it was from Southern charm or just a strong conviction of saying, I'm going to do that and that's it. And that's what we always admired about him, but those things slipped away in the latter years. He didn't have the strong convictions. He didn't have, I'm going to get it.
When I left the stage, they were yelling and screaming and so forth. I did 2 songs, and it scared me to death, man. I didn't know what I'd done. So the manager backstage, I said, what'd I do? He said, well, whatever it is, go back and do it again. So I went back out and did the same thing again. I really didn't know what the yelling was about, screaming. I didn't realize that I was moving, my body was moving. It's a natural thing to me.
You know, I'm always fascinated when he's in the studio. Elvis was the most underrated producer in the history of recorded music. You know, what does a producer do? He hires the band. He selects the music. And then Elvis would say, okay, hey guys, I want voices here. Okay, bring this down. Elvis was a natural producer. If he came in and did a session, there was always something special.
Even after decades, Elvis remained a beloved figure. His fans never stopped loving him, not just for the music, but for the way he made them feel like they were part of something bigger. When Elvis sang, it wasn't just about the lyrics or the melody. It was the emotion he poured into every note, the vulnerability and passion that spoke directly to his audience.
Elvis worked so hard from 54 to the time he went into the Army, and everything was going well too. Colonel had set up things great. Colonel had made it possible in Elvis's mind that he had a career when he came back from the Army. Normally, an entertainer went in the Army, the career is over. Colonel kept movies being released, songs out, and he had these long-term contracts, which looked really good in the beginning. But Elvis had no script approval, music approval, none of these things. The machinery was set. All the people, William Morris Agency, RCA, the studios, for a few years now, they had gotten all their direction, all their deals was through Colonel Parker. And Elvis doesn't even like to be in those kind of meetings. And Colonel didn't understand the creativity aspect of Elvis. I was alone out to Colonel Parker one day a week, and I could hear after a recording session, Colonel would go, his wife was named Marie. Hey, Marie, can't hear Elvis singing for all those voices and all that stuff. And then I'd go home, and Elvis would get the record, and he would compare it with the acetate that he left the recording session with, and all the mix was different. It would be like if Michelangelo was giving the Pope paintings, and the Pope had these people came in, let's take a few clouds out here, let's make the blue bluer. That's what they were doing to Elvis.
1956, Elvis Presley revolutionizes rock and roll. It looked like nothing could slow him down. But something did. Drafted at the peak of his success, Presley is inducted into the Army on March 24th, 1958. He does his basic training at Fort Hood in Texas. Later, he serves the 3rd Armored Division in Germany as a truck driver. While in the Army in 1958, Elvis Presley will earn nearly $2 million. Otherwise, he will be just like any other soldier. Almost.
For his loyal followers, Elvis going to the Army was a moment of both pride and disappointment. Was still very much a part of the larger social fabric and not above serving his country. But on the other hand, they were devastated at the thought of losing him track to their lives. Elvis's time in the Army didn't dim his star. In fact, it added to his legend. The military experience grounded him and showed his fans a different side of him, one that was disciplined, humble, and in many ways, just a regular guy. He was of other Americans.
Well, Elvis's life was not typical GI. I mean, there was always people outside of his house. The fans were always out there. It was a little tougher for him to be in the Army because everybody was watching him. And they were keeping an eye on him to make sure he did a good job or make sure he didn't goof off. So it was tougher for him than a lot of the other GIs.
When he's demobbed, Elvis hopes to develop his talent as a movie actor.
Meanwhile, I had gotten into a regular outfit. Not the service itself, but just the surroundings, and I was in a strange land, and the outfit I was in, they had quite a bit of field duty. We stayed in the field 6 months out of the year. And it gets cold in Germany. It snows quite a bit. And it was pretty hard to adjust to.
His fans' unwavering loyalty to him throughout his career, especially during times of personal change or absence, was one of the key factors that allowed him to maintain his legendary status.
Elvis liked to have his friends and buddies around him. He enjoyed their company, and it made him comfortable, and he was basically a very shy person until he got to know you. So once he got comfortable around you, he'd rather have those people around him instead of strangers to him. When she walked in the door, I mean, very pretty young lady, but I didn't know how old she was at the time, and I figured she was about 16, but at the time she was 14, I find out later.
He liked young girls. He thought if they got 18, they were ready for Social Security. I said, listen, you know, you better get some keys. And he said, what do we need keys for? I said, for the fucking jail cell. They're gonna put our ass in for you dating a 14-year-old girl. We ain't gonna be able to get out.
I'll tell you where part of that came from.
What?
Why Frank Freeman? Yeah. He was 70, 80 years old.
Yeah.
And we used to notice that he would walk the studio with this beautiful, beautiful young girls. They were probably starlit. So Dr. Blank at MGM Studios, who was the studio doctor, and he asked him, he says, I see Mr. Freeman, you know, with all these young girls. He said, he's 70, 80 years old. He said, what can you do with these girls? And Dr. Blank looked at him and he said, Elvis, when you get Mr. Freeman's age, he said, you come see me.
But she was very mature, very quiet at first, because naturally walked in the room with all these guys in there. And then Elvis, you know, I mean, that's a pretty tough situation to be in.
Elvis, there have been a lot of rumors about your love life. Did you meet anyone special in Germany?
There was a little girl that I was seeing quite often over there that her father was in the Air Force. And actually, they only got over there about 2 months before I left. I was seeing her, and she was at the airport when I left. And there were some pictures made of her. The stories came out, the girl he left behind, and all that. It wasn't like that. I mean, I had to be careful when I answer a question like that.
Despite the age difference, they quickly became inseparable, and the relationship blossomed into a deep love. Elvis was smitten by Priscilla's beauty, innocence, and maturity beyond her years, while Priscilla was drawn to Elvis's charm and the glamour of his lifestyle. When Elvis Presley left the Army in 1960, he did not immediately leave Priscilla, but their relationship was definitely impacted by his return to civilian life. In fact, Elvis and Priscilla's relationship became more complicated during the period after he returned from the Army, but they did not break up when he came home.
So it was.
Elvis's career, once dominated by rock and roll energy, now seemed to be more focused on softer ballads and Hollywood films.
Can you give us in detail some of your future plans?
Well, the first thing I have to do is to cut some records, and then after that I have the television show with Frank Sinatra.
Elvis Presley's movie years are a fascinating and complex chapter in his career, one that highlights both his immense popularity and the challenges he faced as an artist trying to navigate the changing entertainment industry. Elvis made a total of 31 films between 1956 and 1969.
Oh, man, they were wonderful years. They were the best. The movie years were the best years that I spent with him. They were not only the first years I spent with him, but they just far outweigh the touring. He wanted to make other movies, and he should have. He should have had more drama, because you see King Creole and Jailhouse Rock, you know he can carry a drama. He can carry a role of heavy drama. travelogues starring Elvis Presley. He said, I go somewhere and I get in a fight and I sing to women and I sing to the guy after I hit him, and he would make little jokes about it. He says, travelogue, Hawaii, Mexico, you know, everywhere he went.
But yet you still did them. You must have forced yourself.
I had to.
What kind of film would you have liked to have been if you would have had your choice?
That's hard to say. I would like to have had something that was more challenging instead of Hollywood's image of what they thought I was.
When I went to work for him in '64, he had been back from the Army 4 years. He did 2 or 3, good movies when he came back. But the movies were getting weaker and weaker, and the soundtracks were getting, in some cases, more ridiculous and more ridiculous. And he didn't want to record too many movie songs, and he was promised when he did a movie song, especially a situation scene, that they would never be released on records. It was another lie to Elvis. All the business guarantees that were given Elvis were all broken, okay, which eventually broke Elvis.
In interviews during the 1960s, Elvis began to express his growing dissatisfaction. He admitted that he was frustrated with the lack of meaningful material, and he felt stifled by the constraints of the studio system. He also revealed that he longed to do something more serious with his acting, to take on roles that would challenge him and show off his range. But the studios, seeing him as a commercial entity, continued to churn out films that were primarily designed to keep his name in the public eye, rather than to allow him the opportunity to showcase his true talents. This frustration with his film career began to take a toll on Elvis's personal life as well. As he grew increasingly disillusioned with his work, he turned inward, becoming more isolated. His personal struggles, including issues with his weight, health, and the increasing reliance on prescription drugs, began to worsen. His confidence, which had once been unshakable, began to erode, and he started to distance from the woman who loved him most.
Elvis was a very jealous person, okay, with anybody. And there's a line that you had to be very careful of, even if my affection for Priscilla was just on a human level, you had to be careful how you expressed that, where it didn't cause jealousy. I was at Graceland. I was living there within the first year, and hadn't seen Priscilla in a day or so, or Elvis. Priscilla came down the steps, and she didn't look good. I just assumed she was sick, I said, where have you been? And she said, I've just been, upstairs. And I said, are you feeling okay, She said, yeah, I'm fine, thanks for asking, or something, And I didn't know what was wrong was her and Elvis had been in a 2-day fight. And when she went back upstairs, I could hear the lamps flying. So evidently what happened upstairs is they continued the argument, and Priscilla said something to the effect, well, at least Jerry cares how I'm feeling. And that didn't go over very, very well. So the next day, we're watching a football game downstairs. Elvis had never said a cross word to me in all the years that I had known him. And it was like, if somebody's gonna take care of Priscilla, it's me. I don't need you guys asking her how she feels. And man, I was crushed. I was crushed. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to pack my bags. This was the fear of being misinterpreted as somebody that would hit on somebody's girlfriend or something like that. I was crushed, and I think he knew that.
On the set of the Goldwyn Studios, Elvis Presley, Barbara Stanwyck, and a check for $50,000. What's the check for? This is a key to the part of Elvis that is virtually unknown. Comedian Bud Abbott also figures in this tale about Elvis Presley.
In the movie years, the drugs were in control. The sleeping pills and the uppers.
And he said, I want to be sure, we stay up all night. We drive all night. I know you're not used to it, and I want you to, keep up as far as your attitude is concerned. So he said, I want to show you something. So out of his pocket came a little blue velvet case, a jewelry box. He said, open it up. Well, I opened it up, and it was just chock full of pills of every color you can think of. And I said, good God, what is this? And he said, here, let me give you a few, and this will help you stay awake and be in a good mood. I said, okay. So he picked out about 4 of them, and he said, here, don't take them all at once, just take them every couple of hours. I stayed up for 3 days. And to be quite honest with you, it gives you one hell of a good feeling. So I kept taking them. I took them for 15 years. When you start taking the uppers, which is what they were, in order to go to sleep, you need to start taking sleeping pills. So it gets to be a vicious circle. And where today 1 will work, tomorrow you need 2, and the next day you need 3, and then the next day you need 4. And after 15 years, it gets pretty vicious.
I couldn't take them every day. Not to be the goody-goody, but I just couldn't take that pill because I knew what it was going to do to me. Make my mouth dry, it was just going to make me wired all day, and I just didn't want to do it. But I had to take them sometimes because he would stay up to 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:30, 3 o'clock, and we get up at 5 to go on location. I learned from the very start, I sleep when he sleeps. We used to have a thing, in fact, on Paramount, on GI Blues, they had a club scene in there, and he'd kept us up late, and I just couldn't stay awake, and I hadn't taken anything, so I went over to a dead set and got into a booth there in the nightclub set, and they were shooting on another one, and laid down on the booth to get some sleep. And one of the crew guys up on the catwalk just pointed me out to Elvis. I found out later, he pointed me out. Said, like that. And Elvis came around when he got through with his business on, so he came around and looked for me. And he saw me through there because there was a couple of tables stacked up, and I had to kind of put a little camouflage so I couldn't be seen easy. Oh, man. He threw that table and chair, and I woke up straight up. He said, damn you, Sonny, I told you you sleep when I sleep. I said, I'm up, boss. I just took a break,
Elvis Presley's relationship with drugs is one of the most tragic and complex aspects of his life, and it played a significant role in his decline both personally and professionally. Over the course of his career, Elvis became increasingly dependent on prescription drugs, particularly sedatives, stimulants, and painkillers, which had a devastating impact on his health, relationships, and his ability to maintain his once vibrant public image.
She knew what she was getting into after she was here for maybe 6 months.
Well, she was in the whirlwind. There was no doubt about that.
Once she had a ring on her finger is when she tried to separate Elvis from us.
That's a good point.
Because the fact of the matter is, we would have loved to spend more time with our families.
Yeah.
But he insisted, as you all know, he insisted that we be there.
That's right.
He really gave her no choice because he didn't leave her alone.
Had more
so
airtime
much.
than Goodyear Blend.
I think he tried.
He left her alone a lot.
I think he tried, and and right after they got married, remember that he cut back on the group, So I think he was trying to make that change. Colonel liked to change. Priscilla liked to change to some degree.
Well,
she would like to have cut it down,
control factor,
But he didn't like it.
Well, his behavior really changed a bit as the 70s went on. Primarily, I think, at a boredom, and he needed a change, and the more pills he took, You know, it's just a fact of life. The more pills he took, that didn't help.
Plus the threats, you know, on his
That
life.
didn't
Yeah.
help.
That didn't
The
happen at all, you know,
threats.
so.
I mean, it was a
You know,
combination
the
of
life that he
things.
lived. Paranoia is like, you know, it's unexplainable at times, and he really, you know, he just got terribly insecure.
In 1969, when Charles Manson kills Sharon Tate and all those people up
Scared
there,
him to death.
remember? Scared him to death. He armed every one of us. That's when it became very paranoid. And then we get the death threat in Las Vegas. And he has this picture of Manson in that courtroom, and he's picturing someone like that sitting in a courtroom that their claim to fame was they had shot and killed Elvis Presley. And he took Jerry and Red and myself, who were doing the security mainly at that time, and said, tearfully, if it happens, I want you to get to him first. I don't deserve to be shot, killed by anybody. And then he told us what he wanted us to do to him.
Elvis Presley's later years were marked by an increasing sense of paranoia and anxiety, much of it fueled by his overwhelming fame, the pressure of constant scrutiny, and his growing dependency on prescription drugs. One of the more unsettling aspects of his later life were the bomb threats and other security concerns that became frequent as his fame grew, contributing to a sense of fear and isolation that affected both his personal and professional life.
When the death threats first started happening, they just kind of snowballed. We try to keep them quiet.
Yeah.
Because we don't want the copycats, okay? So we kept these things quiet, and it worked. We had bomb threats. Most people will say, we had a bomb threat at the show, and all of a sudden the paper and people, we kept it quiet because we didn't want to have a bomb threat at every venue we played because we had one at the last one. So someone's going to call in another one at the next one. So we kept a lot of this quiet, just as we kept a lot of things about us and Elvis quiet over the years. Nobody could get things from us, remember?
I'd like to say something right here. Those of you who saw the morning paper, or the evening paper, whatever it was, they gave me a fantastic, they gave us a fantastic write-up. Now they did, except they said I had a punch here, and I want to tell you something. I got that damn punch. I wore a bulletproof vest on stage. True. You know, in case some fool decides to take a 22 and blow my belly button off.
Ironically, the first day I went to work for him, in '64, he had taken too much sleep medication. And when I was first getting to Graceland, Vernon was walking down the steps with Elvis with a breathing thing on. He was having a hard time breathing, and when he saw me, he kind of snapped out of it. And brilliantly he said, we're in Memphis, he goes, and he took the breathing thing off because he didn't want me to see him in a compromising situation. He said, kind of winked at me and said, boy, this California air will get to you. and it was never mentioned again. I'd only seen Elvis as this god, whether we're playing football or fast-witted, all this stuff. And here's being helped down the stairs with a breathing thing. I've seen him way overweight, almost between 5 movies. When you're in the situation, it's so much easier to look back or to question than when you're living it. And don't forget, when you're in the situation, it's not like all of us were not staying up late at night, not taking a sleeping pill to go to sleep. It's not like we were these straight guys with this one freak over here. It wasn't that way. We were all in the boat together in various levels.
The kind of pills that we were taking in that year and a couple of years before that were the sleeping pills, and the pain pills. And those things are the opposite of uppers. You know, they're the opposite of speed that bring you up. These things, I mean, they brought you down. I mean, I look back now and I know that I used to sit there with a sour look on my face, like I was mad, sad, or whatever you want to call it. And I know that didn't help the atmosphere, his atmosphere, or anybody else's atmosphere or mine. But that had to play a big part, in my opinion, of the way he was.
These were prescription drugs. Now, the doctor's writing them for him. He's abusing them, but they're not illegal drugs in his mind. But he wants to stop the people out on the street getting heroin and cocaine to young people and trying to influence them to get on to drugs and things of that nature. So that's what it was in his mind. As intelligent as Elvis was in so many ways, he was naive in thinking that there were separate issues there, because there really wasn't.
I think the main thing about the situation with all the drug stuff that he was taking is the way it affected us. Everybody knows how it affected him, but it just totally terrorized us. So what we did is we really sort of majored everything we had and knew at the time to prevent it. And we did the best we could. And then he would fire you and you couldn't do any good. But if you hung in there, you could possibly keep him alive another day.
Everyone knew that if they can't be around him, he's going to fire everybody.
Yeah,
you couldn't do anything.
And then you can't help.
We had a group effort a couple of times, actually, to address Elvis. It's hard to psychoanalyze everybody. Everybody's relationship was with Elvis. Our secondary relationship was with the other people. I think Elvis has given up on some of his dreams at this particular point. I think he's getting tired. I think he's getting bored. I think there are new people coming around that probably think that's the norm. But for us that really knew Elvis most of his life, this was not the norm for him.
I would go into like just really feeling horribly sad. But I was just mad. I stayed mad. I just could not believe that he did that to himself. I just could not believe it. I mean, Elvis, he took the same load on an empty stomach that he took when he was eating. So it went to his system faster.
And, you know, he was losing a little of his patience. There's no way of getting around the fact that the drugs were affecting him. Not just physically. It's hard for me to admit to that, but I think we do more injustice by not admitting it.
The worst thing that Elvis did, and it got me upset, got Sonny upset, is he would use our names on prescriptions.
I had a situation, I must tell you, that one time a liquid Demerol came to the house on Montebello Drive in my son's name, and my son was like 4 or 5 months old, by a doctor, a dentist in California that had written for Elvis. I intercepted it to see what it was, and I had no idea that my son's name was on there. I want to see what it was and see if there's something I could do to change some of the strength of it or whatever. And there it was on this liquid Demerol bottle, Brian West. I went to Schwab's, took the bottle. I said, I want this taken off right now. I want it removed from your records, and so help me, I don't care who calls it in. If you ever send another drug up to that house in my wife, or my son's name, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in serious trouble. He had written 10,000 tablets or medication, not individual, I'm talking about the total amount of pills and everything, 10,000 in 1 year's time. And of course he said, well, some of the guys shared in those. Elvis didn't share his drugs with you, man. I mean, he might give you a Percodan if you hurt yourself or something like that, but he's not giving it to you on a basis where you can just go ahead and get high from it every day. 1975, what I had been seeing a little bit of the previous year or so was getting worse, and I was very concerned about his health. And it wasn't like it had been before when he was taking the uppers and the sleeping pills. When he started experimenting with the, the down stuff, that's when we started getting concerned.
That was my biggest fear around him. I just could not see Elvis Presley dying. I could see
I
him
did.
stepping out on that stage and not being able to do his show and the fans booing him. I could see that. And I knew what that would do to him.
The fans would not.
That would have.
You know what happened? You know what happened to Elvis? Let me give you a classic example. Fans literally can cause you a lot of problems, and they don't mean to. They accepted him the way he was.
In any manner.
Had they got up and said, "Get fucked. We don't like the way you look. We're not coming to your shows," and I promise you, in 48 hours or 72 hours, he'd have got himself so shaped up it'd have been unbelievable.
See,
In 6 months, he'd have been straight.
In the weeks leading up to his death in August 1977, Elvis was reportedly becoming more withdrawn and fearful. His paranoia continued to grow, and he was still convinced that there were people after him. On the night of his death, he had been experiencing severe health issues, including heart problems, and his drug use had only worsened. The bomb threats and the idea that his safety was constantly in jeopardy were just some of the many ways his mental state was unraveling.
Interrupting with a bulletin just in from Memphis, Tennessee. Elvis Presley may be dead. An unconfirmed wire service report says the 42-year-old singer was found unconscious in his Graceland mansion in Memphis, rushed to a local hospital where efforts to revive him reportedly were futile.
Elvis Presley was maybe at the height of his career, 10 or 15 years ago. Though his fans would dispute that, they would say that his popularity has never grown dim. And that's why they've come to pay their respects, to stand outside his house here, some of them to drive past the house in their cars, to pay their respects to the man they still call the king of rock and roll.
I can't believe it. I just can't. I've been a fan of Elvis since I've been 16 years old.
I just can't tell you in words. It was such a great shock to everybody, and to Memphis especially. He's a boy just like I was, raised poor, but he made it, and he was good to everybody.
All I feel is just hurt. I hurt all over.
Well, to me, he was the greatest. He was the birth of rock and roll. He's been the greatest through the 50s and 60s, on through the 70s, and he'll live on forever.
Oh, baby. His blend of rhythm, blues, and country is widely acknowledged as the original rock and roll. Revolutionary in its time and still a draw now, even at a video concert.
And the cause of death is cardiac arrhythmia due to undetermined causes. Now, what this means is that there are several cardiovascular diseases present, which include a history of mild hypertension, which was under pretty good control, and some coronary artery disease. Now, these two diseases may have been responsible for this cardiac arrhythmia.
Like I said, it was a double-edged sword. I thought he was immortal. I mean, every time something happened like an angel, his guardian angel pulled him out of it. So I had that feeling, but at the same time, Billy, what I saw in '76, it scared me to death.
And he died by himself.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me fucking mad.
Yeah.
That makes me mad. He died by himself.
See,
nobody wants to, especially die alone, I don't think. It'd have been so nice if we all could have been around him. But, I mean, as it was, he fell forward on the floor and died. It's horrendous. I mean, somebody should have got in there to him. And I won't say names, but it shouldn't have happened. I think in any other part of this business, if you look at it, I mean, he was responsible for so much, and yet when he died, he took so little with him. And I think that that's sad. He didn't have the chance to really enjoy what he could enjoy.
He enjoyed the planes and the trappings and of money and everything. But I think that really, there comes a time in your life where you really enjoy a lot of things that you couldn't when you were at a certain age.
Elvis Presley's legacy is one of the most profound and far-reaching in the history of music and pop culture. He is widely regarded as the king of rock and roll, a title that reflects his immense contribution to the genre and his lasting influence on the world of music, fashion, and entertainment. But his legacy is not just defined by his groundbreaking music, it is also shaped by his persona, his impact on social norms, and the way his story continues to resonate with generations of fans. His legacy lives on through the music he made, the people he inspired, and the millions who still hear his voice as if it were the first time. The king may have left us too soon, but his kingdom remains, forever etched into the soul of modern music.